In this video, we focus on listening. The listening tests in Cambridge exams are definitely one of the most difficult and most hated parts. But don't hide under your bed frozen in fear, because Teacher Phil is here to save the day. Hi and welcome to Teacher Phil, where I help people like you pass their Cambridge exam. All jokes aside, listening is really one of the most difficult parts in any Cambridge exam, from A2 key all the way to C2 proficiency. Luckily, there are some common problems and principles that apply to all the different exams. So we are going to look at them one by one until you feel more confident and calm. When we talk about common problems, I don't mean your language level. I trust that your level is high enough for the level of exam that you're trying to take. Instead, I want to touch on some very specific problems that can cost candidates valuable marks, as well as the strategies to overcome these issues. Even though I'm a great teacher and some might even say that I'm the best. One thing I cannot do is control time, and neither can you. In your listening exam, all you can do is following the recording. There is no option for you to stop the recording or rewind and listen to a very specific part that you didn't fully understand. You get it done while listening or you don't. It's that simple. Luckily, there is one thing that Cambridge does for you, like a nice little birthday gift. And there's also another thing that you can do to help yourself. Firstly, you can always listen to each recording twice. That gives you the opportunity to listen one more time, just in case there are some answers you didn't catch during the first listening. So rule number one, don't panic, because there's always a second time that you can listen. Secondly, and this is the thing that you can do to help yourself, there's always a little bit of time for you to look at the questions as well as the answers before the recording starts. So of course you could decide to lean back, look out the window and marvel at the beauty of life. Or you could take your pencil and make good use of these precious seconds that you have. You can always underline some important words or make some notes about important missing information. What exactly to do in each part, we are going to look at in the next section of this video. But always remember, don't waste your time. Use it effectively. The second huge problem with Cambridge listening is that many candidates don't really know what they've signed up for. So they are surprised by the different kinds of tasks and don't really know what to do. Can I tell you a secret? There are only 4 different task types in Cambridge listening, from A2 key all the way to C2 proficiency. That's right. No matter what your level is, the task types are pretty much the same. So instead of going through each exam and the specific tasks, I thought it would make more sense to go through the different task types, which will save us all a lot of time and give you all the right information in one single video. The most common task is the 3-option multiple choice task. We find it in really each exam, and it always works in a very similar way. You listen to either one longer or several shorter recordings. With each recording come one or several questions, each of which has 3 possible options, A, B or C, and you have to choose the correct one. The possible answers might come in the form of pictures, for example in A2 key or B1 preliminary, or of course in written form. The idea here is always the same. Underline the most important words in the questions as well as in the answers. Or if you have pictures as the possible answers, make a short note about what you can see in each image. This way, you can focus on the essentials and find the correct answer more easily. A variation we can find of the 3-option multiple choice is the 4-option multiple choice answer, which we can find in the higher level exams like C1 Advanced and C2 Proficiency. As you might guess, there's simply one more answer option for you to consider. However, the strategy here changes quite dramatically. Of course, some candidates can still cope with the extra information, but for many, this just becomes a little bit too much and they struggle with the flood of information and get confused during the listening. My pro tip: initially, only focus on the questions and try to ignore the answers completely. Instead, during the first listening, try to answer the questions yourself based on what you hear in the recording. When you listen for the second time, take your own answer and compare it to the answer options and see which ones match. I know it sounds scary to completely ignore a whole part of a task, but trust me, it works and can help you tremendously. The third variety of task we can find in Cambridge Listening is the so-called gap fill or sentence completion task. Depending on your level, the information you have to fill into the gaps can be more simple or more complex, but the major principles stay the same for all the different tests. Before you listen, have a look at the task and make a short note about what kind of information is missing in each gap. So when the recording starts, you know what to listen for, and this way you can find the missing words or the missing information more easily. My next pro tip: start with the last gap or the last sentence and work your way up to the beginning. From my experience, candidates get tired towards the end of the recording, so they need more help with the last few gaps in the exercise. So make sure that you have all your helpful information ready at least for the second half of the gapped sentences. Also, try to listen for cues. A cue is a small piece of information that signals to you that you are about to hear a correct answer. In this type of task, cues are typically paraphrased versions of some part of the sentences, so you need to be ready to identify these cues, so you can listen up and find the correct piece of information. In this example, Sally went to an exhibition to see a specific painting. What painting did she want to check out? You can pause the video for a moment and look for the answer. The correct answer is a painting of a horse. If you chose rainbow or castle as the answer, you got probably tricked by misleading cues. Remember, the sentence talks about what Sally wanted to see. In the recording, there is the cue of a painting she was really keen to find, which is the cue for the correct answer. In this case, the painting of a horse. The difficulty here is to identify the cues for the wrong alternatives as well, so you don't get confused and choose a false option just because it's a kind of painting as well. Context matters. So always listen to the whole recording and try to listen for cues before choosing your answer. Last but not least, we have matching tasks. Again, they always follow the same idea. You need to listen to different people and match them to one of several options. In A2 key, for example, you have to match single words to each speaker, while in higher level exams, like in C1 Advanced or C2 Proficiency, you need to do 2 matching tasks with more complex answers at the same time. The task can be more simple or more complex, but the principles never change. Before the recording starts, look at the possible answers and highlight or underline the most important parts. In some exams, like A2 key, where the answers are just one word, this might not be necessary, but if the possible answers are a little bit more complex, I would definitely recommend doing it. If during the first listening you are 100% sure about one or a few of the answers, make sure you cross them out on your question paper so they are out of the way for the second round of listening. Also, pencil in some of the answers that you are not 100% sure about. If for the second listening you only have to choose between 2 or possibly 3 of the answer options for one of the speakers, that can already be helpful, instead of having to look at all the different options again. So there you have it. Knowing how the different tasks in your listening exam work is essential, and I hope that now after this section you feel a little bit more confident with this. However, there's one more thing we need to talk about. Getting distracted during the listening test is another common problem that many of my students, for example, complain about. And with getting distracted, I don't mean little cute squirrels that you might see outside the window, but elements that are built into the listening exam that are designed to confuse you. So let's have a look at an example from a B2 first listening so you can see distractors in action. You can see the underlined parts, which all talk about one of the possible answers, A, B or C. The problem is that only one of them can be correct. In this case, C is the right choice. In A, the young man says that he has reached a high level, but still wants to get better, which means that he is not satisfied, as answer A suggests. In B, he talks about other climbers and that dangerous situations don't affect him. So there you have it. In the recording, all 3 options are mentioned, but the wrong ones are usually contradicted in some way. For example, they might use some linking expressions of contrast or simply add another piece of information that makes the answer incorrect. So the question is, how can you deal with distractors? I think there are 2 possible strategies, and you can choose which one you like more, or if you can use both of them. First of all, listen to the whole recording before making your decision. Try to listen for this specific language that I've just mentioned, like contrasting ideas or extra information that makes the answer incorrect, before choosing your option. Secondly, you can do what I mentioned earlier with the 4-option multiple choice question types and simply ignore the possible answers when listening for the first time. Answer the questions based on what you hear and not based on the possible answers. And once you've listened, you can then compare your own answer with the options and choose the one that matches. Thank you for watching until the end. The listening tests at the various levels are not that different, at least when we look at the different types of task. But it is vital that you know how to use your time effectively, underlining and highlighting important parts and making notes about missing information, so you can score the highest marks possible. We also learned that it is important to know how to deal with distractors. But now I hope that you know what they look like and how to deal with them. If you want, I can also be your teacher. I offer online classes as well as writing feedback. And you can check out a full article on listening distractors on my website. All the links are in the description box below, and I see you in the next video.